Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp Gaming. Today we have another review from my good friend Jace Glover, and it's on the game The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince from NIS America. Thank you to those guys for the review copy. The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince originally released in Japan all the way back in May of 2018, and it was around that time that I first saw a trailer for it. I remember being really interested in it then, loving the aesthetic and the look of the game, but it quickly fell out of mind as dozens of other games released week on week on week. Needless to say, it was quite the pleasant surprise when Mark said he had a review copy for me, and it turned out to be a game I'd nearly forgotten about. So, does this fairy tale adventure end in happily ever after, or is it a dark tragedy? Let's find out. The story begins when you're introduced to a lone wolf and a young human prince. Every night the wolf sings to the moon and the prince sits far down the mountainside to listen and applaud, not knowing that it is a beast making such a beautiful sound. Initially, the wolf considers eating the prince for dinner, but learns to enjoy the praise and happiness she provides the man. One night, the prince decides to climb the mountain to meet the mysterious singer. Fearing the prince will hate her for being a monster, the wolf tries to cover his eyes before being seen, but inadvertently slashes his eyes with her claws, leaving him blinded. The prince's kingdom apparently looks down on disabilities, so he is deemed to be worthless and locked away in the dungeon. Feeling horrible for what she's done, the wolf makes a pact with the prince to take him to see the witch of the forest who can return him to normal. However, in order to guide him, she knows she cannot do it as a wolf and visits the witch herself, giving up her singing voice, her most prized possession, in order to gain the ability to transform into a human at will. In her human form, she sets out with the prince through the dangerous forest to right her wrongs. The story in the game is presented via still action cutscenes between levels as the two titular characters learn to work together and enjoy each other's company through many trials. While there are some silly moments, I very much enjoyed the narrative here as it kept me engaged and wanting to find out what happened to them in the end. The game's description of itself says that the story is seemingly plucked straight from the pages of an ancient fairy tale. And they really nailed that feeling. It reminded me of a combination of Aesop's fables and Grimm's fairy tales, and although it starts off a bit slow, the pacing throughout the rest of the game is really good. Overall, the story is enjoyable and scores 17 out of 20. The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince is one of those games where the trailer doesn't really do a great job of capturing the type of game it is. At first glance, I thought it was going to be a 2D action game, similar to the Fallen Legion ones, another NIS America title that I reviewed. However, the game is actually an environmental puzzle platformer along the same lines as Limbo, Inside, or Planet Alpha, but with some of its own unique mechanics. As mentioned previously, the game centers on you as the wolf trying to lead the blind prince through the dangerous forest to the witch. You do this by holding his hand while in human form so that he follows your every move. However, you will encounter many traps and enemies that will require you to leave the prince behind so that you can use your wolf form to remove the obstacles, or possibly require you to tell the prince to pick up and hold an object such as a lantern. Accomplishing all this is easy enough with simple controls. The left stick moves your character around, while the B button allows you to jump. Holding down the Y button while in human form will hold the prince's hand so that he follows you around, while pressing Y in wolf form is used to attack the monsters. You can transform at will between forms using the X button. Now, as the game progresses, you'll gain access to a few more options, such as using the D-pad to tell the prince where to walk and when you can't hold his hand, or asking him to pick up an object. While the gameplay is decent, there are unfortunately a number of faults to be found here. Unlike the aforementioned Limbo, which in my opinion is the standard for environmental puzzle design, as it provides a fair challenge where you learn from every death, the puzzling here is very easy. The first few areas were actually so easy and linear that I thought for a while the game was nothing more than an interactive graphic novel as opposed to a puzzle platformer in full. It does become a bit more difficult towards the end of the game, and the last level was a lot of fun, but unfortunately the various mechanics you unlock throughout the journey don't really come together in a meaningful way until this point. Another miss for me is the action. In human form, either you or the prince can be killed if you're touched by an enemy or you fall from too high. In wolf form, however, you do not take any damage, and aside from falling into an abyss, will never be in any kind of real danger. This made the combat a little more insignificant, as I tended to just leave the prince at the beginning of the area and then clear out all the obstacles in wolf form before going back to collect him. I wish they'd made it more interesting or engaging, but instead killing monsters is more of an annoyance than anything else. Similarly, at the beginning of the story, you're told that direct moonlight will transform you immediately to wolf form. The game makes a big deal about this, and it does come into play in regards to the story, but it's only used as a puzzle mechanic a couple of times in quite uninteresting ways. Don't get me wrong, the game is still fun for what it is, the mechanics and controls are solid, and I did not encounter any bugs or strange interactions. My only wish was that the difficulty ramped up sooner and some of the aspects were more fleshed out. Overall for me still, gameplay and controls score a combined 14 out of 20. The visual presentation is where the game truly shines for me. I know not everyone likes the hand-drawn chibi anime style, but I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan and it felt like I was playing through one of those movies. The hazy, slightly washed out colouring and the fade out to black on the edges of the screen add to the immersion and feeling that you are inside an old storybook. The environments are nicely detailed and each new area feels unique and alive. The developers also did a great job with the animations, and many times throughout the game I would notice little things that brought a smile to my face. For example, if the prince dies, the wolf while in human form drops to her knees and expresses great sadness. Or the way the prince and wolf both smile when you hold hands but look scared or lonely when you're apart. And further, how the wolf leans in to whisper into the prince's ear to ask him to pick something up. The list goes on, but one thing is for certain, the developers tried their best to capture emotion in every little detail, and in my opinion they nailed it. Visuals receive 18 out of 20. The audio is a bit of a mixed bag. The soundtrack is quite lovely, with each type of area having its own tune, mostly consisting of soft woodwind and piano melodies. Near the end of the game, the music intensifies appropriately as the action ramps up. On the other side of the coin are the sound effects, which are just average. Nothing here stands out or is impactful, and this is an area where I think they could have added a bit more. For instance, when you tell the prince to move somewhere or pick up an object, there's a cute animation but no sound whatsoever. I would have appreciated a little chit-chat sound effect to accompany this. Additionally, the story segments are fully voice narrated. And while the narrator did a great job, it is only in Japanese. Personally, this didn't really bother me as I'm used to watching many subtitled shows or movies, but it would have been nice to have an English language option for those who do not want to read the story. Overall, audio scores 15 out of 20. In terms of value, this genre is one that is hard to nail down. Via the eShop, the game is going to be purchased for $19.99, and you'll see the other prices up on the screen now. The game is fairly short, at about 4 to 6 hours long in total. There are some collectibles in the form of flowers and golden feathers that will unlock backstory or concept art, which adds a little to the replay value. With that being said though, I managed to find everything but 3 feathers in my first run, and the game tells you exactly which levels you missed them in via the chapter selection screen. Although it's short, most environmental platform puzzlers that I've played have been around this length, as otherwise their uniqueness begins to wear off, so I feel like the price is about right. Maybe a couple of dollars cheaper would have been the sweet spot, but if you're a fan of the genre, I do not have a problem recommending this game. For the physical collectors out there, it may interest you to know there is also a physical version being sold in the US through various retailers. However, it is double the eShop price at $39.99. While the price might be significantly higher, it should be noted that the physical copy comes with not only the game, but an art book and soundtrack as well. Definitely one for Glenn. As far as I can tell, this collector's box is the only physical version of the game they're selling, which kind of baffles me a little. Overall, I give value 12 out of 20. To conclude, The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince is a short but adorable platform puzzler with a story and visuals that give the player the feeling of being inside a fairy tale. While it's far from perfect, fans of the genre will find plenty of enjoyment here. The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince receives a total SwitchUp score of 76%. Thanks so much to Jace for this review. He has done a cracking job as ever. And as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!